today we're meeting to express our concerns that the possibility of marijuana legalization, both recreationally and medicinally, could have the impact not only on Ohio but Tuscarawas County. Today I have 6 presenters that will be talking from different points of knowledge. Each speaker will speak for approximately 3 minutes, followed by a period of question and answer at the end. We're going to start today with our youth perspective. We have Jessica Sexton. Jessica is a youth, Tuscarawas County youth. She not only is very active in our local district on youth-led prevention efforts, she is also active on a county-wide youth advisory board, but she is also a state level representative of the Ohio Youth-Led Prevention Network. So Jessica is very involved in this issue, very passionate, and she just wants to report out the youth voice.
All right. Thank you. Hello, my name is Jessica Sexton, and I have been invited here today to represent the youth of Tuscarawas County. As I go to school and interact with my peers, I see how marijuana, even though it is illegal, affects my day-to-day life and the life of some of my peers. I do want to point out that the majority of my friends do not use drugs or alcohol, but I have seen some affected by marijuana. Last spring, my fellow students and I took a survey that questions our thoughts and opinions about marijuana. The results came back. Then it showed that 79% of teenagers in Tuscarawas County oppose the legalization of recreational marijuana. This was very encouraging to hear, but marijuana legalization is still on the ballot in November. With this in mind, I want to vocalize some concerns from non-using youth. One concern youth have is that recreational marijuana is, if it's legalized, kids in our community, and more importantly, our schools, would see marijuana use as socially acceptable. If adults say it is legal and it is medicine, then what's so bad about using it? Marijuana could be popular, if not more popular, than tobacco was in its day. With the negative effects it brings, the damage could be irreversible. Another danger of legalizing marijuana is marijuana edibles. This is marijuana infused into many types of food and drinks. It is often much stronger than when it's smoked. In addition, it increases the availability and would likely appeal to a generation that has been taught that smoking is harmful to our health. When you see the packaging that looks like things kids like, such as gummy bears, cereal, and Pop-Tarts, it makes it seem safer and more appealing. This is not the case though. It takes your body longer to process the THC when it's eaten, which delays the high and increases a likelihood of overdosing. Because of the way they are often marketed, young children could easily mistake them for regular snacks. In Colorado, since recreational marijuana has been legalized, emergency room visits for children birth to 5 years old has gone up 250%. As someone with younger siblings, I really do fear that they could accidentally consume marijuana and suffer the consequences if it's legalized. There are some students who choose to make those decisions to use marijuana, but the majority of students in Tuscarawas County are opposed to legalizing recreational marijuana. You ask for our voice, and the majority of youth who are looking out for their future are starting to look out for the future of coming generations. Our generation is trying to show that we care and that we do think about our future and how our choices affect others. Please do not underestimate our opinion. When voting comes around in November, remember the voice of your local youth and our desire to keep our community drug-free. Thank you.
Our next presenter will be Chief Deputy Orvis Campbell. This will be the law enforcement perspective.
Afternoon. Clear you would expect law enforcement to be up here opposing issue 3. I've been in law enforcement 23 years, and I have to give credit to Responsible Ohio for a great marketing campaign, but that's exactly what it is. They began their campaign this year with a retired law enforcement officer speaking out for this law. I think they did that on purpose. I think they knew that law enforcement would overwhelmingly be speaking out against this law because we deal with marijuana issues every day. We were the number one group that they had to attack, and that's why they let off in such a way. We spend a great deal of our time investigating serious crime, and I can tell you that almost all serious crime is due to addiction. It's just that simple. Virtually every case we do, burglaries, robberies, homicides, all deal with addiction. The judges, the probation officers will all tell you the same thing. The systems are overwhelmed because of addiction. Marijuana in Colorado has been a disaster. Over on the table here, we invite everybody to look at the Rocky Mountain HIDA reports. Everything is up. OVI arrests are up. In 2014, 77% of all DUIs in Colorado were marijuana related. The THC levels in this marijuana, especially in the edibles, are so high that it is bringing addiction and marijuana together at rates that nobody expected. The addiction here is not only habit forming and causing a deteriorating life, it's deadly. There are overdose deaths in marijuana, which is something you always hear marijuana advocates saying does not take place. It's taking place every day in Colorado. So that's why we don't want it here. So although they've done a good job of marketing, we're here to tell you that all law enforcement and its majority groups are opposed to this. The Buckeye State Sheriff's Association, our sheriff's office spends a lot of time educating the public on this. The International and Ohio Association of Chiefs of Police, the Troopers Coalitions, we all very much oppose this bill. There's just nothing good about it. If anybody believes that the people in this room wouldn't want marijuana to be legalized if it was medicine to help some kid with seizures, you're crazy. That's exactly what we'd want. Well, we want the FDA to do it. We've seen some literature out there that there's promising research in those areas, and we encourage the FDA, we encourage the legislator to fund that research to get it done right. But we're completely opposed to the fact that we're going to let individuals whose bottom line, it really comes down to money, is why this is being pushed. Push this through as though it's some savior to all these illnesses when we know that's just not correct. There's been approved pharmaceutical forms of marijuana for decades, and it's not been the holy grail they wanted. But again, we still encourage the newer research to move forward and to find any cures for any of these types of diseases. But otherwise, I think the legalization of marijuana will only bring one thing, and that's more addiction, more deaths, and more crime. So, thank you.
Our next speaker today is Andrea Dominic. She is the Director of Alcohol and Addictions Program at the County Health Department.
The need to use a substance regularly or even intermittently to avoid being in your own sober mind, in your own reality, is a problem, or what we would call in the addiction counseling field, problem using. That avoidance is generally at the core of the initial stages of an addiction. With the legalization of marijuana on the horizon, we, as a people, all join here together for the same cause, are scared, frightened at the problems we will encounter, most especially in the treatment arena. In treatment, we, the helpers, are already outnumbered by the addictive self fighting the true self, with the number of enablers every addict has, by the mile-long alibi system, by the litany of negative tapes that tear down self-worth, by the toxic shame and guilt of the use, by the dysfunctional family structure. And now, our society has deemed it possible for marijuana, an illegal, illicit substance, to be legalized. Somehow, somewhere along the way, marijuana got the bad rap that it's a safe drug. No drug, no substance that we use merely to feel euphoria, high, relaxed, free, is ever safe. Alcohol is legal, and people are still dying of that every day. As we speak, some person, someone's brother, friend, mother, has either picked up for the first time and won't be able to stop, or has succumbed to the fatal effects of alcohol. The same is happening with marijuana today in our own neighborhood in Dover, New Philadelphia, Denison, Yerkesville. Some child has been introduced to the drug of marijuana and been told lies and myths and whatever else to entice the child into using it. Congratulations, society. You have just helped to create the next addict that I will end up treating someday soon. When a drug like marijuana is introduced into social realms, it is wrapped up like some beautiful Christmas present. something that the potential addict wants to open, wants to experience, wants to enjoy. After all, it is Mother Nature's herb. What the proponents of marijuana are failing to tell you is that it is a gateway drug. In my daily work, I treat more persons addicted to marijuana than I do any other substance. Marijuana is addictive. And in the manner in which the legalization of marijuana will make the substance, it will increase the addictive potential exponentially. More and more people will need help. More and more people will destroy their very lives just to protect their relationship with their drug of choice, weed. We don't need any outside forces or nations to destroy our country. We're doing it to ourselves.
Thank you, Andrea. Our next speaker is Dr. Nathan Johnson. He's emergency services physician here at Union Hospital.
All right. Yeah, I'm Nathan Johnson. I'm one of the ER docs here at Union Hospital. As a healthcare professional, I'm opposed to the marijuana initiative because of the health risks it poses to members of our community. Marijuana is not a safe drug. There really aren't any safe drugs out there. Even prescription medications obviously have their downfalls. But marijuana smoked, and that's probably the primary issue, is the smoke from marijuana causes cancer. It's got every bit the tar, if not more, than smoke from a cigarette. It's got other chemicals because it's a natural product. If you smoke brown leaves, it's a bad thing. You cannot have an open flame with smoke in your mouth without having a problem. And unfortunately, the easy answer to that is edibles, and that's become popular with those who support marijuana legislation. And the problem with edibles is that kids love them, and as we've seen from the Colorado experience, kids eat the edibles, and it is a delayed onset. Most 5-year-olds can eat a pack of gummy bears. I know all of my kids can go through gummy bears like somebody's business, and you eat a pack of gummy bears that are laced with marijuana or THC, you won't get the effects from that for about 3 hours, and by that time it's too late really to do anything but to treat them supportively. And a marijuana overdose of that size in a kid threatens their health, threatens their life. So that's not really a great answer at all, and for whatever reason, they seem to package all that as gummy bears or things that look like Raisinets, they chocolate-covered blueberries, things along those lines that kids prefer. They don't package it to look like broccoli. And then I guess the other issue too is that it is addictive. It may not be physically as addictive as maybe alcohol or heroin, but is every bit as psychologically addictive. And I deal with patients frequently who come in who are addicted to marijuana, and I think we're all pretty familiar with the behavior changes that invokes in people, and you become a slave of the drug just like any other drug. And so it's every bit habit forming as anything else is. And then as an ER physician, the thing that bothers me maybe more than the other ones is simply the behavior associated with addiction, with having to find money, with having to find a product to support, just to get you to feel normal. Not to get you to feel good anymore, but to get you to feel normal, because that leads to some really terrible choices in behavior. Violent crime, absolutely, and we see increases in violent crime and driving while under the influence in every situation where this is legalized. So in short, there's not really a safe way to ingest marijuana, and there's really no safe way for a community to deal with the effects of legalized marijuana. So thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Our next speaker is Dick Goodings from Goodings Nursery and Landscaping. Dick will tell us about the business perspective.
Hi, I am Dick Gooding, president of Goodings Nursery and Landscaping, and we serve the Tuscarawas Valley area here. What I'd like to do is to share how I see marijuana legalization as being a detriment to the business community. I've got 4 main points, and I want to state them. Then I want to briefly share under each one of them how we, as a small business, already have had to deal with issues on marijuana. First of all, it's a safety issue, totally. Secondly, the safety of the non-using workforce will be compromised. Business liability will increase, and the potential employee pool for businesses may very well decrease. Let me share the safety issue first. Marijuana impairs individuals. There's going to be an increase of accidents and injuries on the job. In 1990 to 1999, now this is speaking on our firm, and remember, marijuana is illegal. We averaged 4.5 workers' comp claims a year. There was a total of 41 medical and 4 lost time claims. From the years 2000 to 2003, that's a 3-year period of time, we experienced a rash of 16 medical-only claims and 4 lost time claims in that same period. We got kicked out of our workers' comp group rating. Our workers' comp annual premium doubled. Our liability insurance company dropped us. Why did all these events happen? As a boss, I'm always the last to know. But my employees told me after the fact that every one of those accidents and incidences in that 3-year period of time was because of marijuana impairment. So in 2003, we called in the Bureau of Workers' Comp, our partner in Ohio, for workers' comp insurance. They said, you've got to become a drug-free workplace. We did. As soon as we put out the word that everybody was going to be tested, 2 employees quit. They didn't want to be tested. Now, in 2004, since becoming drug-free until last year, 2014, now that's an 11-year period of time, we have experienced a major reduction in workers' comp claims from that 4.5 average per year to just under 1 per year. In 2006, 2009, 2010, and 2013, we had 0 accidents or 0 claims. Now here's the sad statistics. In that same 11-year period of time, we had 18 employees that tested positive. All 18 of those positive tests were for marijuana. 2 of them were a combination marijuana and cocaine. We're a second chance employer. In other words, if you test positive, no, you can't work for us at that point, but you can go seek counseling and test clean and come back and we will give you a job. I'm sorry to tell you right now, out of those 18, we have had none that went through the whole process and came back to work drug-free at Gooding's Nursery and Landscaping. Second point, the safety of the non-using workforce is going to be compromised. When anyone is working non-safely, your other employees are just going to be at a risk for injury. And those non-using employees will certainly be concerned, and rightfully so. In our business, my brother and I share 75 years of working experience since 1975. But we have 30-year employee, we have 2 15-year employees, we have a 17-year employee. We have employees that were here during that fiasco time in the early 2000s. They have told me they don't want to work with others who might be impaired, putting them at risk for getting hurt. Business liability is going to increase. This will be especially true as a service business where your trucks are out on the streets and highways of the Tuscarawas Valley area traveling to and from job sites. We heard Orvis talk about the increase of traffic accidents involving marijuana out in Colorado. The risk of being in a crash roughly doubles after marijuana use. What if an impaired employee in your truck causes a wreck and someone is killed? Who's going to get sued? And if you're a contracting business, such as we are, but right now, Union Hospital, you can go right outside and see this wonderful emergency room, total construction project being done. There's a lot of heavy equipment being used out there. So if you have somebody that is impaired, you're on a job site or a customer home, and that can slip and you can end up having property injuries and damages as well. Our potential employee pool is going to decrease. Who do we hire? We hire young people, fresh out of high school, possibly not going to college. We hire college kids who maybe need to work to help pay as they go through. Or we hire those people who go to college. It's just not the thing for them, and they want to come back and get in the workforce. This group of 18 to 30-year-olds are exactly those who would experiment with drugs and alcohol. Right now, many of those might not try marijuana because it's illegal. But if it's legalized, how many are just going to try it? How many people of any age, if they're out of work, looking for a job, struggling with life pressures, and then have marijuana available, might just want to use it to supposedly relieve that stress? If legalization occurs, as a business then, I see two scenarios, and both are negative. One, we can choose to be drug-free workplaces. In that case, your prospective employee pool was going to be reduced by those that plan to experiment with marijuana. Right now, while it's still illegal, ask the oil and gas industry around here, how many of their prospective employees do they currently turn away because they can't pass a drug test? Go down and ask Walmart. I have. So if that is right now, that's what's going on when it's illegal, what's going to happen when it's legalized? Okay, so the other option, choose not to be a drug-free workplace. That's exactly where we were from 1975 to 2003. Those businesses can certainly expect to see and experience increases in workers' comp injuries and vehicular accidents. In my opinion, the legalization of marijuana will negatively affect the business community in the Tuscarawas Valley and beyond.
Our next speaker today is County Commissioner Carrie Metzger.
Thank you, Jody. I'm going to talk a little bit from the local government perspective. As many of you know, Responsible Ohio has estimated revenues coming into local governments at a level of $554 million in a few years after if issue 3 is passed. 476 million of that will go to local governments. But I'm here to tell you that Responsible Ohio is dangling the carrot out in front of the voters in order to give them a reason to vote for the issue, because people would see, well, if a lot of that money's coming back to the county, we can pave roads, we can do infrastructure, we can increase law enforcement. But I'm here to tell you, we've seen this before. The last time we placed monopolies in our state constitution, it was casino gambling. The proponents for casino gambling also dangled the carrot out in front of the voters by estimating that counties and school districts would reap a windfall of some $586 million in tax revenue, and that by last year, 2014, the tax revenue would increase to $688 million. The sad truth of all that is that in 2014, the tax revenue was only $267 million. That's 61% lower than the estimates and has been decreasing annually since its inception. And now we're starting to see data coming out of Colorado, where the numbers are beginning to come in on the tax revenue for marijuana legalization. The governor's office in Colorado estimated that his state would receive $118 million in 2014. The figures released in February of 2015 by Colorado's Department of Revenue shows 2014 revenues to be at $63 million, 47% lower than the estimates. I would contend that Responsible Ohio's estimates are grossly inflated and created for one purpose: to deceive the public into voting for the legalization of marijuana by overstating tax revenue that would go to local governments. But the other side of the coin is this: Responsible Ohio is not talking at all about what the costs of marijuana legalization would be. There was a national study done a couple years ago by the Brookings and Urban Institutes and the Tax Policy Center, and they did this research on alcohol and tobacco. Tobacco revenue brings in, at that time, a couple years ago, $25 billion. The cost of tobacco is at $200 billion. or 8 times the revenue that was brought in. When they researched the alcohol side of it, alcohol revenue nationally was $14 billion. And the alcohol costs were at $185 billion, or 13 times the revenue that was brought in. What makes you think marijuana is going to be any different? So, if you're thinking that marijuana legalization is a good financial investment, I'm here to tell you I got some property in Arizona that I want to sell. In closing, I just briefly want to say about a conversation. Tim Lang and I were at the booth yesterday on Sunday, and there was a lady that came up to the booth, and she had her husband and 2 or 3 young kids. And she came up and says, you know, I'm voting no on state issue 3. And here's the reason why. I moved back from Colorado to Ohio because I wanted to get out of that environment. She saw the issues with the edibles. She saw the issues with smoking in public places, at festivals, at fairs. It brought so much aggravation to her that they actually moved back to Ohio to get out of it. And unfortunately now she potentially is going to get caught in the same scenario. So hearing that, I mean, is this really what we want for Ohio and Tuscarawas County? I'd say no, and Tuscarawas County's families and kids deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Our last speaker is Representative Al Landis, who has been a great support here in Tuscarawas County for down in Columbus. Thank you, Al.
Thank you, Jody. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today. And I want to thank the Anti-Drug Coalition for allowing me to stand shoulder to shoulder with them today against such an important issue. And I do say against. And I do want to recognize the young people that have stood up today, that have spoken, the people that are behind me, that have the guts to say, you know what, we don't want this. We don't want it. But I do want to caution you. My notes are short, but my thoughts are long. So I just want to talk just a little bit about why we are here today, and that's to educate. We're up against a lot of money. A lot of money is coming in from the investors, the 10 investors that are, have pushed issue 3 onto the ballot, and those who think they can make a profit off us in Ohio. Kerry alluded to, his interaction at the fair, and Thursday, I had the opportunity to talk with a young person there at the booth, and he came up and he wanted to know who was in charge of this booth. And I said, well, Jody is, but I said, I'll be glad to answer your question. And he said, why are you so opposed to marijuana? Marijuana cures cancer. Marijuana cures cancer. My wife was standing behind me. I tapped her on the shoulder. Debbie turned around. I said, this is my wife, Debbie. She's a breast cancer survivor. Do you think for 1 minute that if marijuana cured cancer, that my wife would not have been given it? She wasn't. He goes, that's because you're in Ohio. I said, sir, I would have gone to the ends of the earth to find the cure for cancer. It's not in marijuana. What I want to talk about now, and actually go to my notes, is to talk about legislatively. On June 30th, we were called back into session. The budget was out of the way. We had our long days out of the way with our caucuses and our committee, and the vote was done on the budget. But we were called back in for a couple of very special things, one being the bill that would become state issue number 2. State issue number 2 is designed to prevent monopolies from going into our state constitution. We were duped, with the casinos. We fell for it. We took the bait. What is the cost of addiction there? Commissioner Metzger talked about the tax revenue. But what is the cost of addiction for gambling? I'd be curious. But what we did, this vote was supposed to be taken 11 o'clock on that Wednesday morning. We didn't make the vote until 9:30 that night. There was no way on this earth I was leaving Columbus until I voted on that bill that became State Issue 2 to help take this type of thing out of our state constitution. It took until 9:32 p.m. to get that bill across the floor. There was some tweaking done, and I think we came out with some very strong regulations that is going to curb State Issue 3. There's a lot of important issues on the ballot this fall. None more important than Issue 3. Simply put, Issue 3 is an ill-conceived attempt by a small group of wealthy, self-selected investors to place a marijuana monopoly into the state constitution here in Ohio. Issue 3 would give those same investors exclusive rights over the legal marketing and sale of medical and recreational marijuana in Ohio, and would exclude Ohio farmers from that process. Issue 3 is irresponsible. It's a plan that allows for production and sale of marijuana-laced edibles, which will undoubtedly attract the attention of children, such as marijuana cookies, marijuana gummy bears, marijuana lollipops. Disguising marijuana to look like treats from the grocery store will not only pose a danger to toddlers, but will also make it much easier for marijuana to be widely available in our schools. Not to mention, these products and more will be sold at over 1,100 retail operations and shops statewide. That is nearly 3 times the number of state liquor stores in Ohio. One can only imagine how close the nearest pot shop will be to their home, to their school, or to their child's playground. Ohio is a great place to live and raise a family. We have good schools, safe communities, and great sense of pride in our state. Issue 3, the marijuana bill, the monopoly, is taking us in the wrong direction. When the voters go to the ballot on November 3rd, I urge strongly, let's send a message to these responsible Ohio folks that we're voting no on State Issue 3. Thank you.